Make sure my audio is on this time round. There we go. Good evening, everybody. Matt Geary for the Geek Pride cast on this Sunday evening. With me tonight, we have some usual faces and another special guest. So, starting off with John Joe Cosgrove.
Hello, everybody.
Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening.
And our special guest tonight, Walter White, lookalike, and prop maker, Michael Corey. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm about to log off now. I'm done with it.
Okay, so Mike, for everybody who's being, who is not on TikTok and has been living under a rock for the last sort of couple of weeks, who are you? What do you do?
Well, my name is Michael Corey, as you said, and I am the host of the at Props to History on TikTok. In the last 30 days, I went from being just another schmuck on TikTok to having 114,000 followers now.
And rising.
And all I do is tell stories about props and what they were made from and different things about film background. And that's it. And I didn't realize that it was going to be that popular.
What was the sort of, because obviously you haven't been on for that long, because when I first started following you, you had, 10,000 followers or something ridiculous like that?
I think that's the first time you sent me a message was when I had 10,000 followers, which is like, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then
10 times that amount.
It's mind-boggling to me because I woke up one morning and I had gone from 3,000 followers to 10,000 followers overnight. And then within the span of a few days, I was at 50,000 followers. And then 6 days after that, I was at 100,000. And I'm gaining 4,000 to 5,000 followers a day. And it keeps steamrolling. And I don't know when it's going to stop, if it's going to stop. So I just keep making the same content. But it was extremely rapid and very unexpected.
I have to say that out of all the TikToks, like mine generally consists of my TikToks generally consists of dog stuff or nerdy stuff, and when yours came up, I was just like, oh my god, this is awesome, because it's nerdy stuff and you're learning as well, and it's just like I'm obsessed with it now because you're quite regular with it as well, and it's like super interesting facts, and I'm like, I didn't know that. That's fucking amazing, and it's like really good stuff.
And that was the goal too. Was when I first started doing it, the very first TikTok I did was actually about the Book of the Dead from The Mummy, and for a long time it was actually my most popular video for forever. When I say forever, for like a week, and then it got overtaken by something else. And I have to remember all of this is condensed down into literally the last 30 days that this has happened. And all I wanted to do was tell this, like a few facts about the prop and then its connection to history. And that was it, which is actually where the name comes from, Props to History. And it blew up. And I was completely shocked by this. And I was like, well, I don't know how many hundreds of props in my collection. I could keep doing this. But then it's turned into, I show off props in my collection and tell the story about them. And also answering people's questions about where props are, what happened to them, how things were done in film. I started doing a short series on the Titanic, and that's blown up beyond what I thought it would. And it's surprising how much people want this information, because we've all grown up watching these movies, and all we know, it's the movie, we watched it, we've enjoyed it. But then when you start to be able to have a conversation about the things you saw in that movie, people's curiosity explodes, and they want to know where'd this go? Did this get destroyed? Does it still exist? Who owns it? That kind of stuff. And I didn't mute my phone. And it's just it's mind-boggling to me that no one else does this with how popular it has become.
When you say props, do you mean like objects that have been in films?
It's some of the stuff that I have is what's called screen used, things that have been in film or it's production made. But most of the props that I have are replicas because I can't afford the real ones. Yeah. Real props are viciously expensive. And I got into this from the perspective of a model maker. I just wanted to make replicas of things I saw on screen. And then the more if you get into collecting anything, I'm sure all of you know this, you start to almost become a hoarder of things. And then I became obsessed with making props from their original parts, which is extremely hard when you go to things like Alien 1979, where some of the parts are still unknown for that, and the whole thing snowballed into this. So where I've converted almost half of my house to just building props.
Well, there's two things from this. One, Pete's a massive Aliens fan, as you can probably see from the little picture from behind him. Mm-hmm. And yep. Two, does your missus not mind that you've taken over the house with all your stuff?
Oh, well, my missus is actually also a prop maker.
Oh, right.
She is also a cosplayer. So it's a very much a mutual thing. One side of the shop is hers and one side of the shop is mine, kind of thing. My crap tends to be bigger, so it takes up more space, but we both do it. She's not as into it as I am. She's not as obsessive, I guess is the right way to say it, but she does enjoy it. She loves the cosplaying aspect more than anything else.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Does she have a cosplay persona, a page, name, anything?
It's Little Cos Shop, actually, on TikTok. And she just joined TikTok basically to follow what I do, essentially. But she's also Little Cos Shop on Instagram as well. And she has a very nearly screen-accurate Princess Leia, Endor Princess Leia. That's actually, the helmet is made from the same parts as the originals, the old World War II flight helmet and some other screen accurate parts, and we tried to make it as screen accurate as possible. We're still working on it. And then the other one that she actually just completed is oh goodness, I can't remember what they're called right now. Weeping Angel from Doctor Who.
All right, yeah. And, I saw that. I saw that video actually. Yeah. Yeah,
her wings are. I think each wing section is 260 individually cut feathers that are layered to look just right, and her whole she hand sewed every part of it and then completely inundated it with glue and paint to make it look like stone, so that when she moves it looks like just stone moving around. So she did a beautiful job at it. I'm quite proud of her for that.
You were saying about some of the things, obviously, what you've made in terms of replicas, but you've also got some screen used items.
I do.
What was the first screen used item that you
got? The first screen used prop I ever bought was, did you ever see HBO's The Pacific?
Yes, I loved it.
Yes.
Loved it.
Okay. So the character John Basilone.
Yeah.
Who was a real person, Manila John Basilone, he was called in the Marine Corps. There's a scene where he's carrying what's called a rising submachine gun. It's just a wooden stocked submachine gun. They did not get used in service in World War II for very long. They were kind of outmoded, but he's the only character seen carrying one, and he's carrying what's called a stunt prop. It's a rubber casting of one of those guns, and I ended up buying that. I ended up winning that at an auction. So it's actually a screen match, screen used stunt prop from the Pacific. And that was the very first. I'll be doing a video on it before long to demonstrate how prop guns, like how stunt guns look and what they're made of. But I had to clear it first with TikTok because it is it is very hard to look at it and not think it's a real firearm. So, and I have to be careful with that because TikTok has fairly strict regulations on that stuff. So I don't want my channel to get banned because
man, so many times we did we were sort of friendly with TikTok Jesus, and he's been taken down numerous times. And
there's so many people that hate him.
I know. It's like,
and I don't know why.
I kind of know why, but it's just like, I know why. But it's just. And him got taken down on Christmas Eve when I was like watching him, and he's just like, my channel's just been taken down. I was like, oh, dude, that's grim.
Take your moment.
Yeah. It's like I'd be mortified, it's just like, I know mine are all dog videos and stuff, but the thing is, I'm starting to get, because I think you're safe because you're just basically telling people facts about things that they can't really have opinions on. You're literally going, this is how it is. I've done research, history. Whereas mine's literally, I thought I was safe until I started, I had a stupid video of me pulling my dog, and everybody's like, you're not training that dog properly. You're not doing this properly. And
everybody all of a sudden becomes dog experts on the internet.
Yeah.
So
it's just
my wife actually comes from a family that have bred and raised and shown dogs since she was a little kid. And they raised Akitas, American Akitas, when she was little. And she knows all about large dogs that size. And she watched some of your videos and kind of read into that little controversy, and she's like, he's doing nothing wrong. And then of course she went on about how adorable your dog is.
Yeah. It's bad, like, because like I thought I was pretty safe on TikTok. I was like, I'm just taking videos of my stupid dog doing stupid things, and the one where he's like being pulled, he's not even serious because, and I've had to prove this, which annoyed me because I had to prove it, but it's like he goes when I tell him to go most of the time. 95% of the time he sort of does what he's told to do. Basically, he knows who's the boss, but he is stubborn, and I thought I'd show you, one, how strong he is, and two, how stubborn he can be if he wants to be. And I thought it's hilarious. The guy, it's really hilarious. And then I just get people going, you don't know how to train a dog, and this is dog abuse, and you should do this, and you should use a choke collar, and you should do all this stuff. And I'm just like, whoa, where the hell's this coming from?
I get my fair share of righteous indignation as well. Because,
really?
Oh yeah. Well, and you know full well, there will always be someone on the internet that wants to be mad. They want to find a reason to be angry about something, and usually with me, it's if I mispronounce something.
All right.
They will attack me for mispronouncing something, like cities. I try my best to pronounce cities in other countries correctly, but sometimes I mess it up, and that's what I tend to get attacked for, is mispronunciations or something like it. But there's always somebody that just won't let it go. Like, no matter what, it's like, this is the hill they're gonna die on, and okay, bud.
Well, the thing is, engage them.
I don't want to block you, but it's really easy to do.
But the thing is, man, I was thinking about this, and I did another video, and it's just like, if you engage them, they have to watch your video, and they're commenting, and you're getting paid money. You go, it's 2p a view, 2p for 1,000 views, or whatever it is, or 2 cents. And so basically, the more you engage them, the more they're working for you. So I just let them go. I'm just go, fine.
Well, like every video that I post, and you brought it up at the beginning of this, there's always someone, or probably half a dozen someones, that tell me how much I look like Walter White, and I have to just ignore it, because otherwise it's like, that will be the whole conversation, will be that I look like Walter White. So my only choice is just to let it go and move on.
Man, I look
like Tom Hanks or Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman.
How old is he? Is he a Newfoundland? He's a fluffy Rottweiler. What else do I get? I bet he shits a lot. It's the same questions over and over and over and over again.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Joe, it took me a second to realise you're talking about the dog. I thought you meant yourself for a second.
Do you know what? The really upsetting thing is that we started this in lockdown last year, which is nearly a year. So we started in March of last year, so it's nearly a full year since we've been in this shit. And my girlfriend, who's sort of like, she's not a nerd in any way, shape, or form. She's a fashionista, you know. She does an Instagram, you know. She does proper fashion and stuff. She makes me take photographs of her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to start a TikTok because, you know, that's a new thing." And I was like, "I can start a TikTok, you know. I'll start one." So I started doing stupid things and getting no traction whatsoever. And then as soon as I put in a stupid video of my dog literally doing nothing, it was just like, boom, 500,000 500,000 sort of kind of views. I was like, oh, so this is where this is going to go.
I'm actually quite surprised, because I see people like your channel. I look at the views that you get on your videos, and I have almost no views on any of my videos. And it just seems like people just follow me and that's it, and don't watch my videos at all. Because I don't understand. I won't claim to understand how TikTok works, because I don't. But yeah, it's a weird little place. Much like Twitter is a weird little place.
It is. But the thing is, you get envy, because I'm like, you got so many followers and stuff. And it's just like, I had like more followers. I think it's like we went from a massive chunk of, Boz went. It's not even my TikTok anymore. It's Boz's TikTok. Boz's TikTok went from, like, you know, and the most we got 30,000, and that took nearly 9 months to get 30,000 followers. And then one of his videos where he comes in from the snow exploded and it's on 12 million views at the minute and 2 million likes and all kinds of crazy. It just sort of kind of went fucking mental.
I'll tell you what, Boz is going to be getting an upgrade on his food, don't he?
Yeah.
Going to be going
TikTok don't pay that much. TikTok don't pay that.
I think also my consistency, or I guess you could call it that, the rate at which I make videos probably hurts me a little bit too.
No, don't stop it, man. It's awesome.
Because I put out 20 videos in a single day, and that I just started dumping. Yeah. I put out 20 videos in a single day once. I usually average between 7 and 10 a day. And because a lot of this stuff is pulled from memory, so it's easy for me to make it on the fly. I try to do it once a day where I show off an actual physical prop, but the rest of the time it's just me telling stories. And I think that doesn't help because I think the analytics kind of shut me down. They're like, we've had enough of you. Go to bed.
I don't think it's that. I think it's because your content is it's to do with short things, like videos that sort of kind of go bit are like 15 seconds long, 20 seconds. It's basically it's to do with how long somebody will watch it for and stuff. So people might watch you might have a lot of people watching your videos, but they're not watching it for a long time, for the full amount. And as soon as that's where it sort of kind of kicks you in the balls. So I find like if I've got something that's a minute long, it doesn't do as well as something that's sort of 15, 20 seconds long. And it's shareable. It's all shares. It's all about shares and stuff like that, isn't it? So how many comments and how many shares and stuff you get. And it's just like, thing is though, man, it's just like, but you've been on it for a month, you know, and you're at 110,000 and counting.
Okay.
So, you know,
I'm probably doing all right.
Yeah, it's just it's mad. You know, I'd be absolutely insanely jealous if it wasn't for the fact that the content's absolutely amazing. Like I love it. You know, there is honestly nothing on TikTok that I enjoy more than watching your videos. And it's just like I don't tend to use my follower tab much. It's usually the For You page, but I do just so I can see how many new ones you've put on there and stuff, and it's just it's a joy.
It's usually I put 5 on this morning before I was done with work.
And then after this podcast, we'll give you another 10.
Oh no, he's frozen out.
I actually have a whole 4-part series because of a young lady asked how to get into prop making, and then it's just a 4-part series of me telling how I got into it, because it is my journey, if you will, into making props professionally, which I only do semi-professionally now, is probably as atypical as it gets. But then at the same time, every other story I've heard of people that got into props, they're all atypical. So I don't know that there is one road, but I was just trying to give this young lady some advice on what to do, because I think she's only like 18 and she wants to get into it. So that's
a good segue, actually, because that would be an interesting sort of view.
Story.
So from the start, from the foam horse to the
it goes much further back than that, sir.
Does it? All right, okay.
Oh, it does. Yeah. So, I grew up on military bases because my dad was Air Force. So we traveled all over the country. He would go overseas and whatnot, and he was a model maker from long before I was born, and he passed that hobby on to me as a model maker. And when he spent a lot of time at RAF Alconbury. And
oh no. Oh,
come on,
Mike.
Come on, come back,
Mike. Come back to us, Mike. Come back to us, Mike. Come back to us. No.
Come on, we was having so much fun.
We just got the story and he's gone. No way. Well,
it was a story that was far too good, obviously. You know, we couldn't contain it.
We'll carry on. Oh, he's gone now. He's off.
Oh, he's gone.
He's off.
Okay.
It was the pose he was left in as well. He was like ready for.
And he's back.
He's back. He's back. Michael, are you there? Come to the light, Michael. Come to the light.
Knock if you're there.
Michael, cough once for yes, twice for no. Are you there?
This is all it, because then what's going to happen is my internet is going to go down and stuff. So
don't say that.
All right, while he's sort of messing around with his connection and stuff, what are you boys been up to recently?
Okay. I've been playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I just picked it up on the Steam sale. It was half price, and it's just like, yep, I've been wanting to play this game for some time, and it's here, and it's really good. It's basically Dark Souls meets Uncharted in the Star Wars universe, and they've nailed the lightsaber dueling and the fighting perfect.
I bought it ages ago, and he's back. He's back.
I'm back.
He's
Can you
back.
hear me?
He
Everything
can.
good?
Well, let me
hello.
stick you back on.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
but
you
that
were
was all
mid-story, and it's
fun.
just like, nah, we're not going to
Okay,
go.
well, are we good?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I'll just start from the top. Dad, England, Air Force, brought back Jerry Anderson stuff. I was a model maker. He was a model maker long before that. When VHS was first a thing, and this is how old I am. When VHS was first a thing, my dad managed to land his hands on like the early VHS of like the Jerry Anderson shows, and some of them were being shown on Nickelodeon and stuff. And I fell in love with them. I fell in love with Space 1999 and Captain Scarlet, and even though like the Thunderbirds like creeped me out like none other, I absolutely loved the models that were in it. And that was what drew me to it, was the models. I didn't care much for the story, even though Captain Scarlet was really awesome. I love the models. And the same with Doctor Who. Like Tom Baker was the first Doctor I ever watched, and his scarf is hanging up over there in the corner. But I fell in love with that stuff. And then I started seeing like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Alien, all that in that era. And it was the models that I'd focus on, and I wanted to duplicate them. And one day there was a TV show on PBS, which is the public access here, and it was about how the models for Close Encounters of the Third Kind were made. And the moment that I heard they were made from random model parts glued onto stuff, I literally looked over at my closet in my bedroom, which was full of model kits. And I tore them all apart to make a spaceship, which infuriated my dad to no end. But I was hooked on the idea of kit bashing and scratch building at that point, and I started trying to duplicate what I saw on screen or duplicate things that did not exist as a model kit. And I ended up building a it's 1/54th scale, it's about 5.5 feet long, cutaway model of the USS Monitor, the world's first ironclad ship. The second one that was used by the United States during the Civil War. Famous for fighting the CSS Virginia at the battle.
Oh, are these the two ironclads? The two ironclads?
Yeah, the first two ironclads.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was the one with the turret. Designed by John Erickson, and I still remember a lot. I ordered copies of the blueprints from the Library of Congress.
Wow.
I went all out to try to make this. And this is in the days of early internet, where a lot of this stuff really wasn't available online. And the model was purchased and is actually owned by the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia. It was the first model I ever sold, where they have the actual turret from the Monitor that they raised from off of Cape Hatteras in South Carolina. But and I got into competition model making, where I would compete against other model makers. I did really well at it. And it's a hobby that stayed with me ever since. And I still love scratch building, and I did some other model work, and then I had to go do stuff for a living, and it kind of fell by the wayside. And about 4 years ago, I went to Gen Con, which is a big gaming convention here in Indianapolis, and I was introduced to cosplay for the first time, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I started making props for cosplay, because I had the skill sets transfer super easily from model making into cosplay. There's some humps you have to get over. But I started doing that, and then a good friend of mine, her name is Bree, her and her husband, they raise Clydesdales. And they train and they show Clydesdales. And one of her horses was about to have her last show before she retired. And she'd been showing this horse for 14 years, I think. And she said, can you make a costume for my horse? She's a huge Star Wars fan. Bree, not the horse. The horse couldn't care less about Star Wars. But she said, can you make an AT-AT costume for my horse? And I said, how hard could it be? I'm pretty sure there was booze involved in this conversation. And it took me about a year to build, but I ended up building an AT-AT costume with full lights and sound. For a 2,000-pound, 18.5 hand high horse.
This is where you put your hand up and the picture comes up on your hand, by the way. So
yeah.
If this was TikTok, you'd be doing this with your hand.
Yeah, I'd be doing it on TikTok. I've shown it on TikTok a couple of times.
Okay. I've kept horses for many years.
Yeah.
How on earth did you keep the horse so calm and sedate when you put touching an attack to it?
Right. Well, it's a fair question, but Clydesdales are notoriously bomb-proof, is the term that Bree uses. extremely calm, could not be concerned with anything going on around her. And as I was building it, it was a constant series of fittings and refittings to make sure that it wasn't anything that could harm her in any way, that it didn't stress her out in any way. And that's why it took so long to build. Because we decided early on, if Mona's going to be upset by this thing, we abandon the project. Done. We say we tried it and move on. But it ended up working. And I posted it online when it was done. And this was 2 months before the horse show that she was going to up in Wisconsin, and which was the World Clydesdale show. So it was all Clydesdales, these massive horses. And because it was October, they have the costume class, which is where this whole thing started. And apparently the horse world went nuts over it. They thought it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen. It ended up on CNET. It ended up in the New York Post. There were stories written about it in 7 different languages. Apparently, it ended up as a billboard in Japan, selling something.
Wow.
I never watermarked the picture because I didn't think anyone would care. And so a lot of people have used it to make money, and I've made none off of it. But that's just the way things go. You live and you learn. But apparently before that, the horse world did not take costume classes seriously. And then when we showed up, there were I think 37 entries where there had initially only been 5. And it was all these absolutely gorgeous costumes made for their horses, and Nightmare Before Christmas one that was absolutely beautiful and just basically told the whole story of the movie with a horse and a wagon. And I was impressed. And I take some measure of pride that lit people's fascination and imagination to build that stuff. So that's my takeaway from it, to be as positive as possible. And then after that sort of lit a interest in doing more cosplay. And I was like, I want to make a costume. I want to go to a con and do cosplay for the first time in my life. And I ended up making a costume of the Witch King of Angmar from Lord of the Rings. And Weta saw it, and of course they're the ones that made the original costume, and they shared it. They posted it on their website, and then about a month later, after some paperwork, I ended up becoming a contractor for Weta.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So I am on the contractor list for the United States for Weta. Not that I've ever been put to work because they don't really do film projects here, but they loved it, and every con I went to, everybody loved it. And I ended up actually meeting Lawrence McCory, the actor who played the Witch King. And once he signed it, it was no longer wearable. So that sits in my prop room.
You didn't happen to go to
display.
San Diego in 2016, did you?
I did not. I've never actually been to San Diego Comic-Con. I live on the East Coast. I live closer to the East Coast. So I was actually supposed to go to Dragon Con in Atlanta this year, or this past year. But of course, COVID brought all that to an end. So no cons. Probably won't see a con until 2022. Legitimately, because I don't trust people to do things the right way yet. So I've been vaccinated because I work in healthcare as a regular job, but still a lot of people haven't. And until that happens, I'm not going to go into big crowds of people.
Yeah, probably.
But the Witch King of Angmar spiraled into, now I make extremely accurate replicas of props, and I'm sitting in my shop right now, and it's become an obsession, and all I want to do is make hyper accurate replicas of props. And then TikTok occurred, so who knows where it's going to go from here. But
how do you go about making such accurate props?
Well, part of it is 90% of it's research. Knowing what something is made from is the best start. So you remember Alien 1979?
Yeah.
The portable tracker.
Yeah.
It works on micro changes in air density, that line. So this is one that I've been restoring for a friend of mine.
Restoring?
Yeah, because he's had.
Wow.
Oh man, I know. I thought you'd love that, Pete. When I saw it in one of his videos, it's like, Pete's going to buzz off that.
Oh yeah,
So
that is amazing.
I still have quite a few parts to attach to it, and he's had it for a long time. He built it from parts that he actually got from Bob Burns. Well, from molds that were obtained from Bob Burns. And if you don't know who Bob Burns is, in the prop collecting community, he's an absolute legend. He owned the filming model for the Nostromo that was 11 feet long. It sat in his driveway for 20 years because he didn't know what to do with it. But he also owns the original time machine from 1960. He found it in a thrift store for $1,000. Yeah, he for the longest time it was thought that there was only one spacesuit left from Alien, and that it had hung in the Hard Rock Cafe for forever in Las Vegas, I believe. And a friend of mine restored it, and he actually makes those suits. He made the suit for Adam Savage and a bunch of other people. And he met Bob Burns, and he was talking to Bob Burns in his house about how I restored the last suit. And he said, "You didn't restore the last suit." And he just opened his his closet door and pulled out another suit used in the movie that he just happened to have piled up in the back of a closet. Like, this guy has an insane amount of props, and they were just given to him. Like, no one cared about props at one time.
Yeah.
Back in the late 70s and early 80s, movie props were just a thing you made and discarded. Much like with Star Wars. When the first Star Wars film was made, they put all the props in a storage garage and then stopped paying on it before the movie was released because they didn't want to pay for it anymore. So it all went in the trash.
Oh,
except
that makes me feel slightly sick.
Including the original Death Star. And the Death Star changed hands several times before it actually ended up being used as a trash can in a honky tonk in Missouri.
I saw that video, and I was
it's now fully restored and in a collector's possession. But being used as a trash can in a honky tonk in Missouri is what saved it, because otherwise it would have been thrown in the garbage. That's what happened with props. But like I'll go back to this thing, the tracker. This is actually a bunch of found parts. This is a cover for a drain.
Yep.
And on this side is an ice cube tray.
Yeah.
That they just glued to the side. Now the whole thing, the tube on the end, this here, is believed to be the cover for a tube for an oscilloscope, but it's never been fully identified what it's from. Right. But the whole prop, the basis of it, bear with me a moment, is a Panasonic portable TV.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what they start life as. And I'm the only one in the world that owns all the molds to make these. And I've built 7 of them so far. And I have another 5 TVs now to make more of these. And once I'm done with those, I'm done. I'll never make more. Never make them again. I hate making things over and over. But people want these because there's no one else making them. And I'll probably at some point sell the molds. But that's how it starts, is research and then finding things and digging stuff up. Do you remember Firefly?
Yeah. Do you know what? This is a bit of my shame. I've never seen Firefly before. Don't take my Geek cards away from me, but I've never seen it.
We need to talk, Matt.
Oh no, Mike, you've gone again. Oh, he's back.
Oh,
no,
he's back. He's back.
I'm back.
You're back.
Is it good?
Oh.
You're good. He's kind of froze out there.
This is nerve-wracking. But the Lassiter from Firefly, that's in a couple episodes. They try to steal it, right? They do steal it and they try to sell it. But this is a replica of the Lassiter that I've been working on. Now, I'd say what my grandfather used to say. I'll give you a buffalo nickel if you can identify what it was made from. But this and this are 2 found parts. The rest of it's custom. And the 2 parts that it's actually made from are a Galactron gun from the 1960s.
Wow.
And a Ready Light flashlight. That's what it's actually made from. So the top of it, this part right here, is a flashlight. All of this is a flashlight. They gutted it and then covered it up with some sheet styrene, added some what are called greeblies on the end. And then this is the handle of the Galactron gun.
Yeah.
And that's how these things were made. And hunting down these original parts is extremely hard sometimes. I searched for the better part of a year just to find that flashlight. And that's the obsession, is if you're willing to hunt these parts down, and I clearly am, you can make these props. And 3D printing and 3D modeling is a completely viable way to do this too. But I have this thing about finding original parts, and I keep doing it.
Do you have a pile of shame? Now, obviously, I'm a
pile of shame.
A pile of shame. So basically, I have I'm a Warhammer 40k nerd, and so I have literally Tupperware, like huge containers full of sprues, of stuff that I've wanted
I
to.
feel you.
Yeah, and not made
I
yet.
feel you. Yeah, no. I do. Well, I don't consider it shame. I consider it future projects. I have a whole shelf over there, which means nothing to you because you're not in the shop, but it's covered in bins that are filled with parts, and it's parts of machines I've taken apart, things I've used to make other props. I keep everything because I might need it for something else or for different scratch build. But you play 40K. When did you start playing 40K?
Rogue Trader in the 80s. I was there from day one, pretty much.
1988.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was there. The first I remember it as well. My dad came back one day. And like he was a master, like he used to make sort of like tanks and Spitfires and model planes and stuff. So like your father, you know, he's really into model making.
Are you me?
Yeah,
Good Lord.
well, I wear glasses, you know, and
Right.
well, it's like same sort of thing. So like my uncle was in the forces as well, so we all into the modeling and stuff. And he came home one day, and like I think he got me some sort of like airfix kits and stuff. So we'd made sort of like Spitfires and he sort of made this sort of kind of Panzer III, I think. And then he came back one day and he had a sprue of Space Marines, an old Citadel pack of paints, which I still have some of the old paints from like the 80s flying around still,
Wow.
and a book. And it was Rogue Trader, and he said, "Oh, this has just come out. I thought you might like it." And I was just like, wow. And I loved it. I did a project on it in school that I was so into, and bar a little sort of space in the middle where I tried to be cool and downgrade the fact that I was a massive nerd. I've pretty much been a Warhammer geek for all my life. So
Yeah, my first 40K model as it was 1988, and it was the 2-pack of Land Raiders when you could get 2 Land Raiders in a
yes.
box.
Oh yeah.
And they were dreadful models, of course, at the time, but I didn't care because it was 2 tanks that I could build. And then I think it was maybe a month later, my brother found the rule book and he said, "It's a game." and we started reading it and we're like, what do these rules even mean? Because we couldn't understand. You played Rogue Trader, half of it was super confusing. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I played 40K all the way up. I think to 7th edition was the last time I played.
Oh man, it's 7th edition. To be honest, at 7th edition I had it sort of charmed, but it was a bit too bloated. They've now knocked it down. So 8th edition and now 9th edition, they've just streamlined a shitload of it and stuff. And
I've still got the original Rogue Trader up on my shelf.
yeah,
I still have mine.
Yeah, I've still got mine too.
I still have mine.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's the thing
I
is,
still have all my original Necromunda books too.
oh
From
no
the
way!
first
Yes.
Necromunda, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I've got a massive thing. Like I've got most of the rule books, but I now started getting, when sort of 6th edition came out, they brought out this like special edition rule book that looked like a reliquary. I can't even say the name. A reliquary. Yeah. And it had like you got a bag and you got a mug and you got all this crazy shit inside it and stuff. And I went, they're doing special editions now. And so literally, so on 6th edition, 7th edition, up the Apocalypse versions of both of those, 8th edition and 9th editions, I have these special editions now that just sit there on a shelf. They're not even open. They're just like, they're there. They're special editions. They don't get touched.
Yeah.
And then I buy the original version. No, the one you can use, just so I can have it. And yeah,
Okay.
and it's just got
No,
me.
I remember that obsession. That was actually one of the big things that derailed scratch building and the kit bashing I did with sci-fi models was actually 40K, because I got really heavily into 40K for probably 6 or 7 years, and that was all I did. I made some beautiful models during that time, but they were all 40K related.
What's your painting like?
What's that?
What's your painting like? What's your painting skills like?
My painting skills are nothing compared to my brother's, actually. My brother is a beautiful miniature painter and sculptor, but I'm tabletop worthy.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah. For that type of painting, when it comes to props, it's a different story because it's a different style of painting entirely. So I'm trying to make it look realistic in 1-to-1 scale versus trying to make things look realistic in 28 millimeter scale. So
Yeah.
See, I get a bit sort of as much as I love model making and stuff, but I get sort of overwhelmed by it, and in that I'll even stuff that it's got instructions. I don't use instructions. I just sort of kind of figure out how it sort of fits together. I just do this. I just do it. Yeah. But I sort of get to a point where I'm like, I make the thing, and then I'm like, I could sort of, you know, kit bash this and I do, because I do Space Wolves, so I do sort of like a stick on sort of like Thunder Wolf heads, and I do stuff like this, you know, sort of generic Space Wolfy type stuff. But there's a guy who runs the Games Workshop, or now Warhammer in Manchester, and he does some of the most impressive kit bashes of stuff. Like, he has got a kit bashed orc submarine, a kit bashed Titan, orc Titan, but it's not even one of the silly looking ones. It's like, it looks like it's hench. It's like this sort of, and it's so impressive. And he does this as all kinds of, you can see all the bits he's done it with, and I'm just like, I wish I had the patience to do something like that. It's mad. So props to you, because seriously, man, like, you know, the amount of patience and time it must take to sort of kind of, one, come up with a thought, and two, to create that thing is just, it blows my mind.
Well, sometimes it actually it starts with the object, because I will do thought experiments occasionally where, like, my wife is throwing something away and I'm like, no, I'm going to keep that and turn it into something using whatever I have available to me. And the last one I did was actually with her with a shampoo bottle. I made actually made a distance filming model out of a shampoo bottle that I'm actually using for an independent movie that I just got hired as a props master for. So it's what this is for. It's one of the spacesuits that I'm building for it. It's one of the spacesuits, and it's actually just an old. It's an old Soviet high altitude flight helmet from the '60s, and it's just, I modified it, and now I have to make 3 more. I've got 2 halfway done, and the rest of the spacesuits. I still have to find all the neck rings. Those are the harder parts to find. But I was a military collector for a while, so identifying military equipment is easy. Easy for me. So I've done a lot of stuff in my life. So, but yeah, I picked up a lot of collecting from my dad, because my dad was a very organized hoarder, is the nicest way to say it. So.
You see TV programs about those guys, American Pickers.
Yeah, well, not like his. His was all obscenely organized. When he's unfortunately he's passed away now, but he had something in the neighborhood of 7,000 model kits in his garage when he passed away. And they were model kits that went all the way back to the 1950s. The very first model kits made by a company called Penguin. That got bought by Frog, that got bought by Airfix eventually. I mean, ancient model kits that you can't find anymore, but he had collected them for years. And he had something in the neighborhood of 700 or 800 books in his library. And it was ridiculous, like how much stuff he'd collected. But it was so beautifully organized that you would never have thought, this guy's a hoarder. He's a collector. There's a difference between hoarding and collecting, and I believe it's organization.
See, that's my thing, right? So I'm currently buying a house up the road, and one of the prerequisites of any house buying for me is that I've got a room that I can have for all of my man stuff, and for books, and for like collectibles, and I've got a fair few collectibles and stuff. Just sort of, I need to show them off. It makes me feel sad inside that they're in boxes at the minute, because I've got no room for them currently and stuff. So like, I
feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you. I've got a shed in the backyard that's quite large, that's full of bins full of props. So when I show off the props that I have in the house, it's what I have room for in the house, and the rest of it's in boxes.
Would you never do like a museum or something? Like, you know, a museum?
There aren't really any museums around us that would be willing to do something like that. At least not that I've thought of doing. But we have, and I know that they have them over there in Europe too, maker fairs.
Yeah.
That once they start up, I'll be able to bring out most of my collection, and I'm looking at building a new building here shortly in the back to move my shop out there. Because right now I'm working out of 240 square feet, a tiny 1-car garage, and I'm looking to build a 1,000 square foot building in the back to move into, so that I can break all the parts out and finish Johnny 5 and finish Wally and finish my 2 astromech droids that I have to work on. And there's a lot of big projects I want to work on, but I don't have space for.
Your place is going to be absolute mecca. It's going to be like.
Well, I'm hoping that this TikTok thing goes somewhere so that I can actually just buy a piece of property and build a very large building.
Yeah.
So that I can then put all this stuff in there, because there's a lot of things I want to build. My wife wants a full-size power loader from Aliens, and I want to build it for her, but we don't have the space right now. So.
I wish my girlfriend wanted a full power loader, but she doesn't.
Right? Well, I did actually. I'm surprised. I did actually find out where the last remaining full-size one is. James Cameron still owns it.
All right.
It took forever to find that information, but it took a while. But I finally figured it out. I won.
Oh,
one thing being to ask, like, I'm, as Martin inferred, I am a massive fan of the Alien and Aliens franchise. Now, one thing I love is, like, a lot of their kit is based on real technology. Like, the harness for the smart gun is basically from a cameraman's suit, but also that the motion tracker is basically a Black & Decker jigsaw. That the kit back?
Yeah, it's a power hammer, actually, is what it is.
Oh, right. Sorry.
The body of no, it's fine. The body of it is a power hammer, and another part of it is a slide viewer. There's camera parts on it. I have most of them in a box over there. I haven't built it yet. But I'm actually working with a friend of mine who's part of Nation of Makers here in Indiana. We're actually going to try and put fully functional LiDAR in it to make it work.
I know some guys in the UK Colonial Marines that would die for that.
So it's one of those things down the road that it's not going to be cheap by any means.
Yeah.
But we want to. I think it's like 8 sensors that we want to put in it, so it will 360 detect motion.
Yeah.
It won't be long range, but all it has to do is beep once, and I'll be happy. But I'm trying to make a fully functional motion tracker from original parts. And no one's ever done that before. Yeah. So there are functional trackers, but not from original.
It has a very specific sound, though, as well, doesn't it? You can listen to it. I mean, I remember playing the Colonial Marines video game a few years ago. Terrible game, but they nailed the sound. It was horrible. I still keep it, though, because they nailed the sound design perfectly. You listen to the sound of the pulse rifles and the motion tracker and say, yes, they actually really got that precise.
Well, have you? I want to say, have you been to the Imperial War Museum there?
Which one?
The one surviving hero prop of the M41 is actually in their collection.
Okay.
So that was the one practical that was built that had both weapons that functioned, because it was a Thompson submachine gun and a Remington 870 shotgun. They only made one where both worked, and BAPTI donated it to BAPTI Armories, is the people that made it for the film. They donated it to the Imperial War Museum, and then they deactivated it because of UK law. I think museums are that way. They deactivated it completely, and then it's on display there occasionally. It comes out for display.
Right, awesome.
There's a guy that collects all of the Aliens memorabilia and actual props, and he's managed to put together the Drake, like, costume, including the armor, the smart gun, the camo, as well, and Gorman's as well, I believe, like the kind of dress Marines. And he's basically he's spent, as fair to say, his entire life just kind of sourcing each different, because as you know, at the end of the film, all the parts go away, and he's kind of been pulling it together from different people and places.
I want to say almost. I actually just did a video today on the APC. That thing sat outside and rotted until it was scrapped because nobody knew what to do with it. But it was an aircraft towing tug. And they had to pull like 44 tons of lead off of it because it weighed so much. And they filmed it in a disused chemical company. And it was also the same chemical company that Batman 1989 was filmed in when Joker fell in the chemical pit.
That makes sense.
So they filmed those in the same place. But if they had not taken the lead off of that, I believe it was a Hunslet ATT-77 aircraft towing tug. If they hadn't taken it from 72 tons to 28 tons, it would have fallen straight through the floor.
Yeah.
So they had to pull the weight out of it. But a lot of that stuff, particularly all the guns, all the live fire guns were almost all pulled out and sent back to the armory.
Yeah.
And like the smart weapon, the M56 smart weapon, was an MG42 with on a camera mount, a custom made camera
Yeah.
mount, and the guy that made that camera mount, you can actually still have him make you one today. That's dead on accurate to the one he made for that. And then they covered it in parts from a Kawasaki AR-125 motorcycle.
Wow.
That's where a lot of the parts come from. If you look on the front of the gun, you can make out quite clearly the frame parts from a motorcycle are along the front of the weapon. And then those all, I think almost every single one of those was dismantled. 2 of them survived. And then the M41s, they made 3 practicals and a couple of heroes, and very few of them survived production. They were destroyed during filming because they just bore them out.
Yeah,
And then the practical disassembled except for 1, and that was it.
I heard like from some of the cast at the Aliens anniversary that Al Matthews, who played Apone, is a former Marine, a decorated Marine, and he basically, as the sergeant, he kind of started leading the rest of the cast on how to be a proper Marine unit.
I love him. Love him.
And chewed out the guy that played Hudson.
Bill Paxton. Yeah.
Bill Paxton, yeah.
He chewed that Bill Paxton because he had very, as he called it, very poor finger discipline. He kept putting his finger on the trigger, and inadvertently shot up the set one time because they were using like the genuine rounds, and basically just like, you do not put your finger on the trigger. You put your finger behind the trigger. You do not touch it. And
I tell you what, man, one of the coolest things I have ever seen at a convention was Apone sitting there at his signing desk, flanked by Colonial Marines, just looking badass. I was like, dude, that's awesome. That's so cool.
I can't remember. I believe he was. I think he did 4 years in the U.S. Army, but he was an NCO. And a non-commissioned officer, and he was very strict about weapon discipline amongst the actors, which was pretty poor because they're actors, they're not military, they're not trained for that. So and actually it was shortly after that they did actually started doing the mini boot camp training for actors in films, so that they would have proper weapon discipline, because blanks can still kill and cause harm. And still, it's the military trains weapon discipline. So that's something that they tried to convey with that. And that's where you had things like Warriors Incorporated with Captain Dale Dye, who came out and started doing boot camps on films like Starship Troopers and The Pacific and Band of Brothers and all that, to make actors look like they were actually in the military, and to then transfer those skills over so they were better actors and able to portray those characters. Yeah, I think a lot of that kind of stemmed from Aliens and some accidents that occurred on set.
I'll go on.
Basically, one of the things that really stands out for me in the Aliens was that they did the mess hall scene last. They basically put them through like boot camp, then they did the other filming, and then they did the mess hall scene. And you can see that you can see just from their very naturalistic body language and interaction that these people have been working together as a group of Marines or actors that have been enforced like in close proximity to each other for many months. Pardon?
Oh no, he's gone again.
Might be back in 3 seconds.
What's that? Did he leave? Is he gone now?
He's back. He's back.
So you were saying?
Did I disappear again?
You did disappear again.
Unfortunately, so.
You're back though.
Good Lord. Brutal.
You still on dial-up in Indianapolis?
Yeah. Well, it's America. We're lucky to have plumbing. So, no, I live in the middle of nowhere. So I'm in a very rural area. So internet, unfortunately, is spotty out here, because in America we're big fans of monopolies. So companies don't have to provide services, kind of thing. But we're supposed to be getting a much better internet company coming in here shortly into our area. So we won't have to pay through the nose for nothing, which would be lovely.
One thing I've been wanting to ask is like, how did they build the smart guns?
Mm-hmm.
The smart turrets system. How did they build that?
Oh, the turret system?
Yeah.
Well, those were actually the same guns used in the smart weapons. They were MG42s. And you can see the same drum magazine, and it's all they are is a 50-round magazine, so they burn through that super, super fast. But they just put them on a remote control turret, and it was just a servo that moved them back and forth, and they would fire as it went. So it wasn't tracking anything at all. It was all just magic. And I don't know if any of those turrets survive anymore. I've never seen one of the original ones. But I imagine there's parts of them around, but they were the same guns that were used for the M56 smart weapons. And I think they actually only had 2 live fire MG42s, so they were constantly swapping them back and forth for different films. And actually the lady who played Vasquez, she had to be really, really careful during scenes where she had the live fire gun, because it's quite heavy. An MG42 fully loaded, covered in motorcycle parts is very, very heavy. And that camera arm that they were carrying, the Steadicam arm, if they let go of the gun, it would fly out in front of them under spring tension. And she let go of the weapon one day, and all of that weight went like 2.5 feet out in front of her. So she was face plant immediately. Because she's not very tall. She's actually quite short. So it took her down, and it nearly took down the actor who played Drake once, because he let go mistakenly, and it almost took him off of his feet. So there were a lot of weird things going on in that movie. But I do like that their armor was actually metal. Every single one of them, their armor was metal.
All right.
And also each actor customized it themselves.
They did, yeah. They gave them a table full of stuff and said, make it look like it's your own. And I also love the story of the camouflage pattern on the armor. Terry English, master armorer, made all that stuff. And he couldn't remember what colors they had told him to use for the camouflage, and was actually supposed to really closely match the fatigues. So, like, basically on the night, he painted it. He said, you know what? This'll do. This'll be fine. They'll love it. Maybe not. Who cares? I'm Terry English. They'll just send it back.
I don't know if you can see the image behind me. That was given to me by Terry English.
Oh, nice.
It's the armor design from Aliens.
Oh, that's cool.
That was presented to him by James Cameron. And Terry English signed it to me. So it's like, yes.
Nice. That's a good piece to have. Yeah. When it arrived on set, James Cameron looked at it and he was like, I love the mismatch. Let's keep it. Because otherwise it was going to be a completely different camouflage pattern.
Yeah.
Just because Terry was like, I can't be bothered to remember. To hell with it. Send it.
Do you know what blows my... Sorry, just one quick thing there before you jump in, John Joe. The Vasquez, the actress who plays Vasquez, she's the mother of John Connor in Terminator 2.
Yes.
And I didn't, I never, it's like, I was like, but a year younger before I realized that when something popped up and I was like, holy shit, that's the same actress. Yep. Didn't know. Sorry, John Joe.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Speaking, would the T-1000 really survive?
I don't know.
What I was going to say is I know some people, when they get into their craft, they see their craft first before they see anything else. When you're watching a film or when you're watching a TV show, do you look at the props and do you just go, I can make that? And then you go, shit, I'm supposed to be watching this.
I knew right where you were going almost immediately with that question. No, I cannot. I cannot watch a movie without looking at props. And it infuriates my wife to no end because I do my level best through the first watch of a movie to just watch the movie. But I can't help but, what's that? What's that made from? That looks familiar, you know? The second watch through of a movie, my wife has accepted that it will get paused 100 times while I try and identify stuff. And oftentimes, the second watch through on a movie, my wife will leave the room. She's just like, do your thing. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to go play Minecraft or something like that.
I find when I watch the old Doctor Who, like going back to William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, you can see just how low budget is. Everything that they pick up is literally no part went spare. They probably reused each part about 10 or 12 times. And it's just so fun. It's so fun when you watch it, especially the first Dalek story. One of my favourite things of that is the corridors, because you can even see it's literally they've just painted a corridor and then they've just put it on a different wall each time that they're running along, and it's just the same canvas each time. And even I remember one shot, they literally the canvas is just on the edge of the screen and you can see behind it it's just nothing, and it's just
right.
It And I think it's just so funny. But it was like I couldn't help but not like look at that. I had to watch that, and it was like I was like, hang on, you've got Susan basically being chased by a Dalek on the left hand side, but the right hand side you can see the prop guy, you can see the camera
you can
guy.
see Steve from lighting.
It's crazy, but it's one of the things, especially watching old Doctor Who. I find that's what I do. Even one of the Tom Baker ones. I remember there's an alien where literally they just got bubble wrap and they put green paint over it. And
I remember that.
It was like I watch it. It's like, how can anyone see this as scary? How can anyone even think this was like the whole, hide behind the sofa?
I love the idea that the BBC basically just like dug around in their pockets and they were like, "Here's your budget, Doctor Who, enjoy." That was how they made those shows. But and you can see that and that's a good example of prop recycling and reusal is Doctor Who and different shows from that era. They were all pulling from the same prop departments that the BBC had, because the Monty Python is no different. The famous albatross scene from Monty Python, where they're in a theater and he's just calling out albatross, albatross, get it on a stick. John Cleese says that skit came about because John Cleese was in the property room of the BBC and found a giant stuffed albatross. And only because it was there, that same albatross has been in 7 or 8 different shows on the BBC from that era. And it was just background decoration. And John Cleese took it and made a hilarious sketch out of it. But the BBC regularly...
Oh, dropped out again.
Oh man, I was really enjoying that story as well. Right?
Oh no! Did I drop out again?
Just mince it. It's all right. When I'll try and knit this all together in post production. So
okay. Where did I stop at before I?
You were basically he got the albatross out of storage and go.
At the BBC.
Yeah.
He got the albatross out of storage and made a whole sketch based around it, and that was it. That albatross had been reused in numerous different shows. It's just background stuff, but John Cleese turned it into something hilarious. And then you see a lot of those same props from Doctor Who and Monty Python, whatever, being reused by Pinewood and Elstree Studios later on in Star Wars. Because in some of the earliest seasons of Doctor Who, the same spacesuits were then later used by a character in the Cantina, and then later that same spacesuit was worn by Bosk.
No way.
And that spacesuit is actually a high altitude. It's an RAF high altitude pressure suit that is one of the rarest pieces of military equipment in the world, because they were only made for a short period of time and then they were surplused, and almost all of them were bought by film studios. And the helmet from that is also the rescue helmet from Alien. That's behind the pilot seats that you only see for a few seconds, like the opening scene where the information goes across the visor. That's that same helmet that comes from that flight suit. So you see all this crossover of stuff when you start to like educate like yourself on what these parts are, where they came from. And it's much like you said with hallways. Even in Alien, they were using the same hallways, as just shifted or moved in one way and painted a different color. And it's the same with, if you've seen Outlander, they did the same thing in Outlander. They would use the same sets, but then change the angle at which they were sitting and make it look like a different set, which I love that.
Isn't the Death Star, the corridors like Leeds University or something like that? It's like one of they used the corridors from like Leeds University, or is it Sheffield University?
I don't remember. Sheffield.
I don't remember. I've heard this before, and I haven't fully researched it, so I won't say one way or the other. But I have heard that it was from a university or from an art school specifically. But I've not researched it, so I can't say 100%.
Yeah.
Because I heard that the armor from Starship Troopers was later used in.
Would you like
Firefly.
the full list? Would you like the full list of everything that it's been in?
Yes.
It's been in a few, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's been in a lot. So it started out in Starship Troopers, and it was designed and built by Max Cervantes out in California. Yeah. It was then used in Power Rangers. It was then used in Firefly and Serenity. It was then used in Planet of the Apes in 2001. It was then used in Imposter in 2001 again, and then it's been seen in some background shots in a couple of different documentaries, and by this time it's all so worn out it can't be used anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But they made 2,000 helmets 2,000 sets of armor, and about 1,100
there it
advance.
is.
Oh wow.
There it is.
Very nice.
This is actually taken from one of the original production molds. It's all fiberglass.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Cool.
But I have a mold that I make these out of resin, and I'll be selling those here before too long.
Oh,
But
love it.
this is and you can tell how bad these things were and how fast they made these. But I actually have been speaking with a guy in Florida who owns most of the live fire versions of these from production.
Whoa.
So and it's actually it's a fun story about these rifles. So the way that these weapons are deactivated differs based on country. In the EU, the barrel is considered the weapon. So the barrel gets deactivated. Here in the United States, it's the receiver, the part that actually the magazine goes in and cycles the ammunition through. So these things were deactivated when they were sent over to Britain for sale. They were deactivated under EU law, and the barrels were plugged. Well, then they changed hands a bunch of times and then got resold back into the United States with fully operational receivers, which means that someone in Britain sent some guy a live machine gun through the mail
Holy
here in the
shit.
States. And nobody knew it because everybody looks at these and they go, oh, it's just a prop. It's a prop. Who cares? But there's some folks out there with live fully automatic weapons and they don't know it. And there's actually some in the EU still that were never fully deactivated. And actually, one of the guys that I've spoken to, he bought one through the mail when he was 15 years old, because you can order these through the mail at one point. And when they sent it to him, it was very heavy. And he was very confused as to why it was heavy, because it was supposed to be rubber. And he put his hand on it and squeezed the trigger, and they didn't brass check it when they sent it to him, which means check for rounds. And it was full of blanks, and it was fully automatic. And in his basement, he burned off 5 rounds at full automatic.
Jeez.
And they immediately contacted the authorities, like, oh goodness, we're not supposed to have this. And he got his money back and went back to the studio. But yeah, it was quite exciting, the lack of weapons control that took place on that movie.
I want to hear the conversation that lad had with his mum and dad.
Right?
Mum, Dad, you're not gonna believe this.
Right.
It's
You're
very
never
normal.
gonna believe
That is
it.
definitely not. It's lucky it wasn't somebody from Northern Ireland who had that.
Is it true what I heard? Because there was the incident in The Crow, which is obviously one of the biggest tragedies in terms of film props. Is it true that there was a massive change in the law, obviously after that scene? Because obviously it wasn't just about the weapon itself being loaded, but it was about the responsibility of who basically was in the fault. Because obviously the actor who fired the gun obviously didn't realise that the gun was jammed and that the blank was going to fire off, and that there was a lot of procedural failures that led to Brandon Lee being killed. Initially, they were only supposed to film some knife fighting scenes, and they sent the safety guy home that dealt with firearms. But then somebody said, hey, let's get out the firearms we used earlier. And they used there's two, I did a video on this, but they have 2 types of bullets essentially in Hollywood. They have dummy cartridges and blanks. Dummies look like live rounds, and it's just a bullet in a case with no primer, no powder. So nothing can happen to it. You squeeze the trigger, nothing happens. Well, apparently on The Crow, they were making their own dummy rounds from live ammunition. So they were pulling the bullet, pouring out the powder, but leaving the primer. And in the gun world, that's called a squib. You pull the trigger on a squib, that primer has enough force to push the bullet into the barrel. And that's what happened. And then later, they used blanks. And they essentially used a live cartridge at that stage, because you had the bullet in the barrel with a blank, which is a full powder charge. It fired the bullet out and it hit Brandon in the stomach, and it ultimately killed him. But the safety guy had been sent home. They were not supposed to be using firearms. And after that, all the procedures about the use of firearms on set changed. They can only be
maintained by one person or a small group of people. They're the only ones allowed access to them. I don't know the full rules because I'm not an armorer, but I know that a lot of the procedures changed about the use of them. And there are a lot of restrictions on the use of blank firing guns in film anyway, which is why the use of them in smaller productions tends to be less and less now because of the heavy restrictions on them. They're only actually allowed, if I'm not mistaken, in California, they're only allowed to actually shoot so many blank rounds a day on one production. So, and then you know how they get the sparks on the wall with a paintball gun? Yeah, filled with those special paintballs. They're only allowed to shoot so many of those a day too. So a lot of productions have gone over to just using CG to fill in the ejecting cases and the muzzle flash and stuff like that. Because one, it's safer. You don't have to worry about any of the stuff that happened with Brandon, and you don't have to worry about any of the safety precautions that come with having live weapons on stage. Because even if they're just firing blanks, they're still a live weapon. So, and they have to be treated the same way too. So I know the safety procedures have changed dramatically. I can't speak to the laws because I don't live in California, but I'm sure there are quite a few.
Yeah. You mentioned CGI. What's your opinion on CGI? I mean, I've been speaking to Dave Elsey, the special effects guy from Farscape, and watching that, the physical effects still stand up 20 years later.
Yeah.
But some of the CGI, you're thinking, ooh, that's not as good as it should have been.
I don't think that CGI is 100% there to replace practical effects.
Yeah.
I believe that practical effects still look real because they are. And that the best use of CGI is to enhance practical effects.
Yeah.
The biggest example I will always give of that, because I've had this conversation numerous times, is 2011's The Thing, which was it was essentially a prequel to 1982's Thing, John Carpenter's masterpiece. They made all of these absolutely gorgeous practical effects, and what little footage of them survives, you look at it and you, as someone who is a fan of special effects, you just drool at them because they're just gorgeous, and they were just going to enhance with CGI, and that was it. Well, somebody decided way above the director's head, let's CGI over everything and just pure CGI. And in effect, it ruined the look of the movie. And it makes me sad because the story was there, the acting was there. The only thing that killed it was the special effects. And if they'd left it alone, it would have been a wonderful addition to the Thing mythos. But unfortunately, it's other people got involved and ruined it.
It's like The Hobbit. I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, like huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Way too much CGI.
Yeah, and The Hobbit just it went from the Weta Workshop bigatures. Everything was crafted, made, and you could tell that it was tangible. It felt sort of kind of real. And then they went to just pure, even to like the Uruks and goblins and things like that. Just all CGI,
over the top.
Yeah, and it was just like, it wasn't. They didn't need to stretch it out to 3 films, but 2, they just went overboard.
That was a 1 movie book.
Yeah, that was definitely a 1 movie book. Like, I didn't mind some of the exposition they had in it, some of the other parts, but it's just like, I watched it, and I remember going, like, me and my family was the whole thing. We go and see it, and just coming out, and me and my dad just kind of going, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can. I kind of want to like it because it's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I just don't know if I can because it's just like they've CGI'd the fuck out of it, and I'm just not buying into that. And it's just like, I can understand, like in the originals, where they have the battle scenes in a car park, and they've got sort of people they've got sort of local Maoris and stuff dressed up as sort of like Uruks and stuff, and Urukai, sorry, and they're raining on them, and then they sort of they double it up with CGI, so they make it more, so it looks like there's more of them. But then they're just literally making these battle scenes out of pure CGI, and it's just like, why though? The whole thing, especially for Peter Jackson, you'd think your whole life has been
Peter
made.
Jackson saw a paycheck more than anything, and he was also under enormous pressure to churn it out.
Yeah.
And I think, even he has stated that he regrets how those films came out. So I don't blame him 100%.
Yeah,
I think if you look at when you look at the amount that was put into them films, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, the combined budget was something like about $270 to $300 million. That was basically what they gave for each Hobbit film.
Right.
And so literally, whereas when you're thinking that, 300 million was spread across 3 films, they're obviously being a bit more practical. They're thinking of ways to stretch that money, basically, to do what they can to, all right, we can't afford CGI, so we might have to, like Matt said, hire loads of extras, just paint them up and just go, yeah, we'll copy them in post-production or something. But to be given that $300 million per movie, that's just basically saying, well, we can do whatever we want with it. And it goes from having that thought process of thinking, all right, how can we make this film with what we've got? Basically, it's like we can make the film with whatever. And yeah, I think The Hobbit just really it failed for me because it didn't have that sense of that. It didn't have that grounded sense as what The Lord of the Rings had, especially when you look at The Return of the King now. It still holds up so well. All 3 of the Lord of the Rings films, and just the and even like the final battle in the 2 Towers. That is one of my favourite film scenes of all time, and I think it's just so beautifully shot. It's so grounded. There's very little CGI throughout, and it just looks amazing. And then when you look at a battle in The Hobbit, you think 10 years down the line, CGI has progressed so far. It looks awful. It looks very jarring, and you just can't focus on it. You can't take it in because it just doesn't look believable. It just doesn't look right. And I've not watched the Hobbit films since I've seen them in the cinema because I just can't bring myself to go back to them. But
I think I've watched them once since.
Yeah. It just wasn't the same. I know it's just I didn't hate them, but I was very dumbfounded when I came out of it and just kind of going, I don't want to. Yeah.
They weren't necessarily bad, but it was just that they overstretched the material and they made it look too. It's basically what happened like with the prequels for Star Wars. They literally just went, right, we've got the money now. We're just going to make it over the top and flashy. We're going to throw in everything we can. And it was just like the substance just wasn't there.
In Star Wars' defense, though, they sort of were quite groundbreaking in the use of their CGI because a lot of their CGI was the... what's the standard I think going forward after that and stuff, so they were just he was trying out new technique. It wasn't very well known, so back as much as the old sort of the prequel films get a lot of stick and stuff, they were groundbreaking in a lot of ways and stuff, so
they were.
You can then see in the sequel trilogy they did then bring back more of a practical element to Star Wars, which was really good.
Yeah, they tried to recapture that aesthetic of the original trilogies a lot harder than was in the prequels. But as far as The Hobbit goes, I have no problems with the first movie. I really don't. I mean, there's some little issues that you can't get past, like the Goblin King is annoying, but I don't like. I love that Stephen Fry voiced him, but I can't get past the look of him because the Goblin CG.
Was the Goblin King? The Goblin King was it's not. I don't think it's Stephen Fry. It's Diamedna, the guy who plays Diamedna. I'm gonna have to Google this now because I'm not thinking it's.
I do too now. Now I question it.
It's the guy. There's basically a drag act, an Australian drag act. He was quite prominent in the UK called Diamedna. And the guy who did Diamedna, I'm pretty sure did the Goblin King. I could be completely wrong. Goblin King.
I've just Googled Goblin King. It's come up with David Bowie, so it's definitely not the right one.
Well, that's from Labyrinth.
Yeah. That's what I get for not typing the whole thing.
Yeah, you get Barry Humphries.
Barry Humphries.
Barry Humphries, there he is.
Barry Humphries.
There you go. Every day's a school day.
I'll be the first to admit I'm the idiot here. I thought it was Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, Barry Humphries.
Yeah.
I learned a thing today.
Yeah, there you go.
One thing I liked about the Hobbit films was that I was speaking to Graham McTavish, who played Dwalin, and he's a massive fan of Emily Bronte. And obviously, the big thing with Dwalin, he's got axes. So Graham McTavish said, we should name these axes. These axes should have a name. And Emily Bronte had 2 dogs called Grasper and Biter. And the next day he came on set, and said like, "Oh, here's your axes for Dwalin," and they're actually written on the names Grasper and Biter onto his ass. And it's just like you never see that on screen at any point in the film, but there's lovely little touches I found.
There's a lot of details that you don't see at all on screen that are there, and it's oftentimes it's added either by the prop makers or it's added by the art directors. They want it in there, and it's for the actors or something like that, and it's just these little details that you don't find out about until after the movie. Much like R2-D2 being in almost every Star Trek film reboot, and also in 2001, or not 2001, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind. R2-D2's in that. He's in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just Easter eggs, largely just for the people making the movie. Like, they know these things are there.
Yeah, but I mean, some of that. One thing that always reminds me is in Predator 2. Basically, they put that alien skull in the ship at the end.
Yeah.
And that can explode into a massive Alien versus Predator franchise, and it's just put in there as a random, hey, let's get an alien trophy.
Yeah, it was an Easter egg or something like it was. Somebody was like, let's do this for the fans because it'd be funny, and also Bill Paxton was in Aliens.
Yeah.
So let's do this. It'll be hilarious. And then they were like, oh crap, we didn't capitalize on this. We should have been prepared. Much like Disney with Baby Yoda. Disney was not prepared for the popularity of Baby Yoda. They had no merchandise designed. And everybody jumped on it on Etsy and different websites where they were making their own Grogu, as we now know him. And Disney was not prepared. They had nothing lined up. They made this absolutely adorable thing, and they're like, nah, nothing's going to happen with that. That's them not thinking it through. It is the most popular Star Wars character in a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Is a tiny little Grogu.
And I don't think he's going to be in the next series. I think he's just going to. I don't think he's going to be in the next series either. So.
Well, I think his arc with Mando is done for right now.
Yeah. And I think that's good because they don't want to overdo it, do they? They don't want to overdo it.
Well, because now it's to take back Mandalore at this stage because. There's 3 items, and you might be able to help me with the lore here, and I can't remember 100%, but it's the Darksaber, the spear, and I think it's a helmet. That if he finds that helmet, then he's the unrivaled king of Mandalore.
All right, okay.
He has 2 of them already. So, because that spear is thought to be the spear of Mandalore or something like that. I can't remember all the details anymore. It's been a long time, but if he gets that 3rd item, then he's the undisputed heavyweight king of Mandalore.
I hope that doesn't happen, because what I like about The Mandalorian is that it feels like just all the side quests. There's the main quest happening over here, which he occasionally intersects with, but he's over here doing his thing.
Yeah, I don't want him to become a big character. No. I want him to stay in Djarin.
You want those kind of smaller personal stories.
Like, I hope that he just takes the Darksaber and chucks it in a bin. And then there you go. You beat me. Yeah. Let's play chess. There, you beat me. Take it. I'm going off.
Well, that's one thing he says. Yep, you won. There's the Darksaber.
Yeah,
he does not want it.
No, he doesn't. And I like that about him. And I want them to. They won't. I feel like they won't. I feel like they'll try and make it into a bigger Luke Skywalker-esque hero story. And I'd rather they don't. We'll see where they go with it.
Yeah, saying about hidden little details in films, you say about Predator 2 had the alien skull. Marvel, the MCU, is famous obviously for little Easter eggs and for little props. One of my favorites was in the first Thor movie when they're running through Asgard. There is the trophy room, and one of the items that are there is the Infinity Gauntlet. And for years, you had people just going "Hang on, how's there Infinity Gauntlet when the Infinity Gauntlet hasn't actually been created yet, and the stones are in all different places?" And then for Ragnarok, they literally just go, "Oh, what's it? Oh, no, it's fake," and then just chucks it. It's that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's one of my favourite bits, because it's just oh, hang on. So 6 years of people's ideas, every possible conviction. It's no, it's fake. Never mind. But why? Why was it there in the first place? That's the other thing.
just as Easter egg for fans. I think right now my my very favorite theory that goes on right now involves Samuel L. Jackson, his character that he plays. I'm terrible with names. So
Windu?
Nick Fury.
Oh, Nick Fury, all
thank
right,
you.
Marvel, right? Yeah.
So there's the race of shapeshifters that we get introduced to in
Oh.
Captain
Oh,
Marvel.
yes, the scrolls. Yes,
The scroll. So in that movie, there's a scene where, of course, this is younger Samuel L. Jackson, and he can't eat something because it's bread cut diagonally. He can't eat it. And people started going back in other movies that took place later on in the timeline, and he's deliberately shown eating sandwiches with diagonally cut bread. And the theory is that he's been a Skrull the whole time.
Yeah, that was it, because that's the thing. No one knows how long he's actually been up in space. Because in the post-credit scene for Spider-Man: Far From Home, you find out that he's on a Skrull spaceship, and it was like, hang on, so how long has Talos actually been impersonating Nick Fury? Has it been a few months? Has it been years? Has it been since Captain Marvel?
Or do they switch back and forth as needed? Are they working together, like, so that Nick Fury can be in two places at once?
There's a time share thing going on, yeah. I'll be back for the summer. You can cover the winter. Yeah.
Okay, what is your pride and joy? What's your pride and joy piece that you have?
The Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
I was in the right place and the right time to get one of the last pulls from the original production-made molds from the film.
Oh wow!
And I think only 8 castings came out of those molds, and I managed to be in the right place to get a set of them, along with a casting of the key from the production molds. And I spent a long time researching the shades of gold and black that went on that thing, the different paint codes, the whole Pantone of it, and made it as accurate as I could. And I think it's one of less than a dozen in the world that of those particular runs of that. So that's my pride and joy piece in my collection, is because I love it. I love how quickly conversations start over it. As soon as somebody walks in and sees it, they go, "Oh, is that the Book of the Dead?" I don't care how young they are, how old they are. They look at it and go, "Ah, that's the Book of the Dead." And then the conversation starts rolling. I took it to a maker fair before COVID and had it setting on a table. And there was beautiful work all over the place, beautiful objects, everything. And I was there supporting a maker space here in Indiana. And just people walked past everything to go look at the Book of the Dead. And I love how universal that thing is for people, even though it's supposed to be pure evil. Like, their curiosity is immediate. Like, that's the Book of the Dead. Tell me more. And I love that aspect of it, how quickly it can start a conversation.
I don't have any sort of I've got replicas, like I've got the pulse rifle and stuff upstairs from Sideshow Collectibles and stuff like that. I've got nothing that has been sort of come from actual films or anything. But the most beautiful thing I've got in my collection is a Hoth diorama that was created, and it's basically like 3 AT-ATs. It's about 1 foot by 2 foot by 1 foot, sort of in a glass or a perspex box, and it's absolutely beautiful. But it's signed by Brian Johnson, the guy who did the effects for Empire Strikes Back. And I remember, right, I got this thing, so I won it. It was like a charity thing, and this was a charity. Now I was sitting beside it, this charity do Brian Muir, who did Darth Vader's helmet.
I know.
And at my table was also, and I can't forget his name, but Admiral Piet was there, and behind me, literally the seat behind me was Darth Vader, Prowse, and I was just like, oh my god, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. There's all these Star Wars legends just sort of kind of, David Prowse is there, everybody, I got a photograph with them. I was just like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And then I got this this diorama, which I won. It cost me 300 quid, worth every penny. And then this guy comes up to me, and I'm sitting there just buzzing about this, not thinking about who's around me and what's going on. And the guy goes, "Would you like me to sign that for you?" And I just turned to him and went, "Why did you make it?" And he went, "No, I did all the special effects for Empire Strikes Back." And I went, "Holy shit!" So I've got it, and it's signed by him, and I'm just like, it's like my pride and joy. Love it. It's just a beautiful thing.
I've met a few actors in my time at cons and stuff like that, when they do their signings and stuff. But I was never ever like nervous to meet anybody, just because like that's their job. That's what they do. It's cool that there's someone that I know through this. But I went to this thing called NomCon down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it's Nation of Makers convention. And I was walking down one of the hallways, and I rounded a corner, and I was face to face with Adam Savage, and I'd never met him before, but I found that like special effects people and makers and stuff like that, I'm more nervous to meet them than I would be any actor, like, because that's what my whole life has been focused around, is that. So meeting those guys is amazing to me. So and I had a really good conversation with Adam Savage about props and our mutual love of the Fifth Element stuff, and he's as nice in person as he is on TV. So which was reassuring, because they say don't meet your heroes, but I met him, and he was pretty awesome. So but yeah, that's my one cool celebrity story, is that I met Adam Savage.
Sorry, two things. You talk about Chattanooga. Every time you say sort of kind of talk about these southern states, I sort of kind of get, because I'm a massive I did a military history degree, so I'm just thinking Chattanooga, Battle of Chattanooga, American Civil War and stuff.
Chattanooga,
yeah. But like talking about like famous people, me and my brother and a couple of friends went to San Diego Comic-Con in 2016. Mind-blowing stuff, man. That place is absolutely insane. The whole city's just taken over, but there were so many like just random sort of like celebrities just wandering around. Like at one point, like Justin Timberlake just walked in front of us, and DJ Quails, he's Qualls, he was just sitting in this place called Henry's Pub, and he was just there most nights, and we were there
just DJ Qualls the whole time.
Yeah, just being DJ Qualls. And then me and my brother were like, we were in, I can't remember, near one of the hotels, and we were like taking photographs and stuff for the website, and we're like, should we take a photograph of this cosplayer? No, what about the Gandalf over there? I was like, oh man, no, that Gandalf is that's shit. That's not a very good cosplay. We'll not take a photograph of that. And so we just like, and he was just standing there talking to people, and like we take him. So we just sort of kind of walked off and didn't take a photograph of him, only to find out literally about sort of 20 minutes later, as the comes on stage, the Gandalf costume comes on stage in Hall H, and it's the guy who played the Flash in Justice League.
Oh yeah,
Ezra Miller.
Yeah, Ezra Miller. It was Ezra Miller. It was Ezra Miller. And he was just standing there, and we were just like, and I was just like, dude, I said to my brother, it's like, we literally could have taken photographs with that guy and didn't, because his costume was shit.
I love all the stories of Sir Ian McKellen and all of the times that he uses his "you shall not pass" line over and over and over again for different things. I guess I want to say it was in San Diego. They were trying to go across a crosswalk. There's a whole bunch of people, and somebody dressed as Gandalf. And as the story goes, Sir Ian McKellen just walked up, said, "May I borrow this, please?" and takes the staff from him because traffic wouldn't stop. And he just walked out and just started yelling, "You shall not pass," to the cars. And everybody stopped, and everybody's like, who's this crazy old guy? And a few people realized that, oh shit, that's Ian McKellen.
I've got to say, there is one from because obviously I've never been, but I've always watched the San Diego panels when they've been on. One of my favorite ones was Bryan Cranston, because he was going around the convention
in his real skin mask.
He actually had a Heisenberg mask on, and no one knew it was him. He's just come on the stage, taken the mask off. And it
always circles back to Bryan Cranston, doesn't it?
Sorry, I had to.
You did it to yourself, Mike. You did it to yourself.
I did do it to myself. I know. I know, and I'm okay with
No
this.
one mentioned Comic Con, it would never have come up.
Right? No. Oh, I believe you.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
Well, folks. It's been fun, but I'm being told that it's almost dinner time.
Yeah,
so
we'll leave it there anyway. Okay,
so it's getting late for you guys too. So.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Mike. I really appreciate the time you've given us, and it's been super interesting. Could easily sit and talk to you for another couple of hours now. With just so many stories, we could. Well, need to get you back on again.
I'm going to do a plug here real quick if you're okay with
that. Yes, far
away. If you want to hear more stories about props, you can get on iTunes or Anchor or any place that you get podcastings at, and check out the Prop History podcast. That's me and my friend Greg Nowling talking about a specific movie for 45 minutes to an hour and all the props and stuff behind it. And also, obviously, TikTok at Props to History. And now actually all of my social media is being converted over to Props to History. So on any social media, you can find me on Props to History. And if you have questions, just add it to the growing list of, I think I'm at 950 questions in my Q&A on TikTok. So,
wow, I've got 17.
I got paid per question, man.
I've got 17, and they're all, what age is he? I know, is he really Newfoundland? It's all the same.
Your dog's name is Boromir, right?
Boromir, yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it.
Right, anyway, so we'll leave it there. Again, Mike, really appreciate the time, really love it.
Yeah, anytime.
There was a question in YouTube. I'll say this question now just before you go, but Mike is a kind and gets this is from Nan Braun. It says Mike is a kind.
Oh man, I love Nan. Nan's the best.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to get to this, but I forgot about you.
Nan is a dear friend of mine, so
I'm sorry, Nana. I forgot to get to you. And Mike's got to have his dinner, so we're not going to be able to do it. But it says Mike is a kind and giving human. Other humans ask him about magic wheelchair, but he's fastidious. I love that word, and aggressive about details on props and cosplay, and that gives him amazing results. Well, that's some glowing reviews right there.
Well, if any, now speaking of that, because well, first of all, thank you, Nan. Nan, you're one of my favorite people in the world. Nan's opened a lot of doors for me and helped me in a lot of ways, and she's really just one of the best people on the planet. But a charity that I work with pretty regularly is magicwheelchair.org. magicwheelchair.org. They build costumes for children in wheelchairs, and I first got involved with them with NomCon. And if you want to donate to them, please do. They build costumes for kids all over the world, and they're actually based out of Seattle. But because of COVID, I haven't had a chance to do any builds with them. But it was one of the most rewarding things I ever did. And if you find a magic wheelchair build in your area and want to get involved with it, go through magicwheelchair.org, and you can get involved with those builds to help these kids at cons or Halloween or wherever. It is really one of the best things you can do with your skills as a maker. And everyone's a maker, no matter what you think.
Oh, awesome. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks, Nan. Apologies for not getting to your comment earlier. But thanks a lot. For tonight, I've been Matt Geary. With me has been John Joe Cosgrove.
Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
Peter Ray Ellison.
Take care, everyone. And look out for each other.
And as always, Michael Corey.
Thank you very much, and cheers.